Welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows can be downloaded as podcasts. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. And now here they are, your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And it is Michael
and Margaret
Lyons, and we're in perfect sync here. And you know why we're in perfect sync? Because we don't lead busy lives. That's a lie.
I was gonna say, what are you doing over there?
Well, that's our topic tonight, though, and I think there's two ways to come at this topic. So let me just say it: the phrase that struck that came to our attention, if you will, was to beware the barrenness of a busy life. And I think there's a sort of a disparity between those two, because people will immediately come back to you and say, "What do you mean? I mean, if you have a busy life, it means you're doing things and things are happening and it's interesting, and that can all be true, and I think it is true, but there is a certain superficiality which can creep in if you're using sort of the day-to-day minutia of life to sort of push back any sort of depth in relationships, depth in an understanding, and even depth in introspection. You know, busyness can be the death of any sort of quiet time, of time to just reflect. And I think it is a seductive thing to think that if I have so many things in my life, I must be having a wonderful,
a wonderful life.
A wonderful life. It's a wonderful life. A wonderful, productive, and fulfilling life. And I think, we've been listening on and off recently to Tolle, and Tolle would say that busyness is just another form of distraction. It's another form of it's a layer between you and consciousness. It's a sort of a layer where you're constantly talking to yourself and constantly thinking of the next thing and constantly living in the future rather than in the now. And so there's a certain truth to that too, and maybe we can come to where the center of it lies. But so beware the barrenness, not the barrenness, but the barrenness of a busy life. And the word I like best in there, Margaret, is barren.
Yes, it's if you understand the meaning of what it is to be barren, it gives a much broader perspective, because barren means that you are not fruitful. There's dryness in the field that you are trying to bring something to fruition. Barren is, because we think of barren, we think of dry or empty. And when you have filled your life with things to do, you believe life is just a to-do list. And that's interesting, isn't it? Because that's exactly what we're raised to believe, that you've got to get enough done.
Yes. And you're told you're not getting enough done if you're just sitting around looking at the sky, for argument's sake.
And it's following I would always call it an outline of what you think life should be. Literally, it's not just a list of things to do, but you're just skirting the edges of your own life, and you're only marking the outline of your life by this to-do list. It's like the dotted lines.
Well, and also you get to check them off one at a time, in very satisfying ways.
Well, even if you connect the dots on your outline, do you actually have the the thing that it's surrounding?
Mm.
It's only a two-dimensional, and if anything, just a black and white kind of flat line shape. It's not even the thing. And if you understand that your mental constructs are exactly that, they are lines that form connections in your field. And is that all you want to do, is sort of connect the dots? Because we've all done this. You have to prep for something, and you make a list for, well, we need this, and we got to get this done. You're prepping for some large party, let's say. Got to get everything in order. And there is a satisfaction of saying, okay, I got this, I got this, I got this. But if that's all you did, I got it all, does that mean that your party is perfect now? You can lay everything you bought or tried to organize in a row, and it's like, but is that the party? Is that life? And it's not. It's just things. What is life? What makes life? That would be my question.
Well, I think, and that brings us back to barrenness. The other term, when at least the old term, if one was barren, you said not fruitful, but you were unable to produce children. A woman would be called barren, and in many ways, in the Old Testament or in old times, if you weren't married and having children by the time you were 16, you were considered an old maid, and perhaps barren, maybe even unmarriageable. Now, all these are old concepts, but the point is that barrenness is the opposite of fruitfulness, of productiveness, of, in fact, the ability to bring life, as you said. So the barren place is a place in which life cannot be kindled. You have a barren field. You may put all kinds of things, work into it. You may put seed into it. You may give it what you think it needs, and yet it produces nothing. You call that field barren. There's another wonderful passage, again, in the I think the New Testament, or maybe not, but where it's basically you give this fruit tree or this fig tree, you put it in a wonderful place, you give it all the right treatment, and it doesn't produce any figs. And then you say, well, all right, we'll give you one more chance. You drew it again, you till the soil, you inject it, you do all the things, and the next season, still a barren fruit tree. What happens? You cut it down. You get rid of it, because you say that the purpose of this life was not the hoeing or the tilling or all the other stuff that you were doing. It was to produce fruit, was to have the sweetness of life, the actual production of new life. And I think if you are in this busy, as you said, where's the party? The party is in the production of new life, of bringing something into the world, not just checking off the boxes.
Right. So when the tree is given time to be able to come to something, but do you remember the reason why they cut it down? It's not only because it's not producing, but it's taking up resources, space, light, the earth itself, for itself, but not producing anything.
Isn't it, you see, that's why we have Margaret here, because she brings the actual point that I was just kind of poking around. That's exactly the point. You're right. It's taking up space, and it's not bringing life.
It's understanding that you are functioning not from nothing, which is where most people think, oh, I'm just alive. It's like, okay, so nothing produced you. And you're not eating anything to sustain your body at all. It's understanding that it takes energy to continue in the life that you are walking. Are you aware of that? Most people look at the ground and say, oh, it's the ground. It's like, oh yeah, it's always there. It's like, do you understand what the ground actually is? That vastness of the field of life itself that produces something to sustain your life as well as everything around you for continuance. The continuance of life. Your flavor of life, mind you. And it's not life that is not producing anything. I mean, seriously, if you're going to do that, you might as well just be a rock.
Hey. But I like the point. I love that point that you just made, which was, your life is for continuance. I think that's the other thing that this busy life is that it's all just me. It's the I life. It means that I came from. I know nothing. I owe nothing to those who came before, and I owe nothing to those who come after. I will just live for me. Well, that's a barrenness. There's a barrenness there because you are no longer producing fruit. You're not producing the next generation. You're not producing anything of value. You're just consuming, and you look pretty, sitting there in the sun. You're a tree. You've got lovely green leaves. No fruit. And yet there's a lot going on too, that you're consuming things from the soil. You're consuming things from the environment, and producing nothing. The barrenness is also sort of an endless sort of heat cycle with no product. You're just, all you're doing is cycling through your life, checking off the boxes, but not actually either. What we were saying before. If you introspect and you produce a better you, it's still something that you've produced. If you're just endlessly cycling around the drain, just basically keeping yourself in between oblivion and the outer darkness, you're doing nothing. You're not getting anywhere in the sense of a circle doesn't go anywhere. A spiral does, and the difference is that a spiral has produced something to move itself forward. It has taken in energy and then grown. It has stirred the waters, not just endlessly circled. There's the difference there, which is not, when you're barren, you're basically the same all the time.
This is what I mean by you're only skirting the edges of life if all you have is a to-do list. And the argument, of course, is, well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I've got a family, I've got children, I'm doing work, I'm at work, I'm da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And you sit here and you go, but that's still only on the edges of living.
Well, I just agree with you.
To understand that thinking about it is not the same as being it. There's a succession here, all right? Most people say, well, thinking about it doesn't mean you're doing it.
Yes.
Okay. And we'll take it a step further. Doing it doesn't mean that you're living. And people only stop at that middle point because they equate doing with living. And you're like, no, you don't understand. You're more than what you're doing. You're not a human doing. So when you make that connection, it's again, sometimes you're not exposed to the broadness and the vastness of your soul. You're sitting there just you're taught, you have to think about this, think about that, think about this, think about, think. Women especially, okay? I think I told you, I saw a T-shirt, I thought it was great. I said, wait a minute, give me a moment, let me overthink this.
Well,
and I just laughed.
It's funny because, right, it's exactly. It's funny
just,
it's so
it's
true.
so appropriate. I mean, it could be made for anybody, but let's face it, women have been trained to maintain a space, and so you keep thinking of possibilities that can happen, and organizing it, multitasking, as we're very proud to say we can multitask. I can walk and chew gum at the same time. It's like, okay, all good, but who are you?
Well, you're perfectly said it with the human doing versus the human being. And when you say you're not a human doing, you're not a human if all you're doing is doing, you know. And then I think there's also the trap of identity, because again, when you say, well, I'm doing this, 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 you're identifying with the doing. You're saying the I, the identity, that which is you, the being, the I am, which is really the whole phrase, is now the I do. All right, the I do and the I do. If you're always the I doing, you are merely... think of it as a crystal. Let's say it's a big crystal chandelier with 1,000,000 facets on it. Every one of those facets is things that you can do. And we are all brought into this world with amazing capabilities to do so many things. It's very seductive because doing things can feel good. You're multitasking. You're affecting. You're doing. You're touching. But if you identify with each facet, you're only getting a piece. You're only getting a fragment. And people become fragmented by the I doings. The being, which is that which is in the center, the I am, the consciousness, as Tolle talks about it, but just the being is not something which is tiny and at the center and all the stuff is stuck to it like confetti. It is that which encompasses it all, and that every aspect of you is just a tiny facet on this great sparkling globe of being. Not understanding that puts you into the edges, into the frizzle, you know, into the fuzz of doing, and you're barren because your core is empty, or at least it's neglected. Your being is not being nurtured.
You have to feed all of you, not just your physical body. Not just your mental body, where you're consuming ideas or concepts or organizing things. That all feeds the mental body. You're not all ego. People feed their ego many different ways. And you're not all emotion either, where you're trying to satisfy, I need to feel this. It's understanding that your soul, your whole soul, needs to be fed, as well as your spirit. Your spirit body's got to be fed as well. Let me go back just for a second. Your soul is that which feels, that which thinks, and that which chooses. And all three of those are engaged in everyday life. But your spirit also needs to be fed. And to understand that that is where barrenness starts. If your spirit is barren, then everything else will reflect it. That is your source. And if your source is not there, it's not producing a flow of life, then your soul has no flow of life, regardless of what you may be engaging in or doing or thinking or feeling. You're still not engaged with the source that is.
Remember, this was some time back, we had a couple of shows on singing your song and then bringing your song back at the end of your life. It was a Tecumseh.
Yeah.
And I think this relates here because in writing or in bringing things into your spirit, you're bringing in the song of your life. You're bringing in actual experience into your being. You're changing the core, the root. You're actually writing upon that which is eternal, something which you have experienced in the ephemeral, in the temporal, and bringing it back. Barrenness is also at the end of one's life, when one has to relate your life story, and you have nothing. Your hands are empty. What did you do? You're like, well, I was a doctor, I was a teacher, I was a lawyer, I did this, I did it. Do. Nothing. No song, no life. Nothing was produced.
Money doesn't make.
No, not money, not even just accomplishment. All these
Right.
little, I did this, I did that, check off. Nor emotions, I felt this, I felt that. No, it is true experience at the being level, where you then, again, with the spiral, you came in here with a certain momentum, let's call it, a certain drive, a certain a task to accomplish, let's say. We don't necessarily know what that is, but it's revealed in what satisfies, what feeds the spirit. And if you follow that, Campbell calls it following your bliss, but there are many other ways. If you follow that, you follow the song of Tecumseh, you'll have a real experience. Your life itself, people could say, "Oh, it was such a short life." It was he or she was here and then gone before they knew it. But you can live your whole song and your whole experience in the briefest of time. That doesn't matter. The trueness, the beingness of the experience, and what you bring back. I went down to learn this, whatever it was. I learned it, and I bring it back. And the eternal is informed by the temporal, and the life experience is brought up to our experience bank. Am I saying that right? Our interface here, the soul in the flesh, brings experience back through the being into the all, into source. That's your thing here. It's not whether or not you paid your electric bill.
I think it would be interesting to bring up that the experience that you have when you are conscious of the now, we call it writing the experience into your eternity bank.
There it is.
So when that happens, when you're capable of having a consciousness that is full and able to see the experience not just from your own viewpoint when you had it, but from everybody else's viewpoint as the event happened, you begin to realize the fullness of the experience. How did someone actually feel when they saw this event happen to me, and then my response to it? It's amplified 7 times, if I remember correctly, and you see it from a very broad perspective and a very human one, because you're seeing with your heart. You're no longer seeing through the filter of your personality, nor the filter of your physical body and all the emotions that there are. You're seeing it with the clarity of the heart. And when you see that, you realize what it is that you're missing, what needs to be learned so that you may love more fully, or you have accomplished the ability to open your heart to that point and learn how to love 360, to love fully. And that is an amazing accomplishment, even if it's only one event in your entire life.
Yeah, this is a being state, and I think we're talking about here is that life review. The NDEs and other experiences that people have brought back who have gone close to the edge of death show that that's a very important, it's a very human thing. And at that review, there's no excuses. There's no, well, I couldn't go because I had a dentist appointment. No, you get the 360 view of whether your life was barren or not. The Egyptians used to call it the weighing of the ba and the ka. They would weigh your heart. And if your heart was heavy, it would sink. If your heart was light, it would balance. It was supposed to balance with a feather.
Yeah, well, it couldn't be too light or too heavy.
Right. You don't want to be. In the Egyptians, a little bit different, but the idea of a life review was even in their, and they had a tremendously complicated and rich view of the afterlife. Your life here was to inform your life there. And there was a passage, a gate, a life review, where if you hadn't done what you were supposed to do, you hadn't brought back the experiences, your heart, again, the heart. They considered the heart, the brain was to the Egyptians just a bit of waste matter that you threw in a canopic jar and said, well, okay, that's nice. But the heart was so incredibly important that it was considered the seat of intelligence, the seat of all wisdom and knowledge, was the heart. Well, that's, it's not that organ that's pumping in your chest, but it is the true, the ka, the ba, the soul and the spirit experience were weighed, that life review. And it was the seminal event of your incarnation. It was at the end of your incarnation where you got to say whether you'd done it right in one sense, whether you weren't barren.
Right. Your experiences showed whether or not you could, your heart was balanced. It was, things did not weigh heavily on your heart. Nor were you, what would that be called? Someone who is forever saying, oh, yes, we have to be happy and positive all the time.
A Pollyanna is one way.
Right. Too light to be able to produce anything. Or too heavy to be able to produce anything. And it's different cultures have different ways of approaching it.
The humanness, though, of it is, if we go to the Egyptians, we're going back 7,000 years or something of that nature, and we have great records, but the humanness was there in all cultures throughout all of our human history. Right. The idea of a fruitful life was a life well lived, a life well. The living is the being. A life well beed. That's where the language falls down. You know what, Margaret? We have to be back to the studio now, and we will live through it, and we will come back on the other side. It will not be a barren moment. Just be patient.
Wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is Book 1 of the adventures of Devkalion, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
Hi, this is Hannah Ruth from the band Wild Hum. Check out our new Americana Soul CD, Wild Hum, at our website, wildhummusic.com. And you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Thank you.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lynes, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Thanks for joining us on The Soul of the Everyman. If you'd like to send your questions and comments, please do at dj@artistfirst.com. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lynes.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And I'll tell you what, folks, this is just an aside, but you really should listen during the breaks. We're going to have to broadcast it someday. Anyway, moving on, the barrenness of a busy life. So I think we talked a lot about barrenness, but let's talk about the busy side. I think it's very seductive, and especially today, with all the social media and with all the phones. You have a phone, you have two phones, you have everything in your pocket is trying to interrupt you, trying to keep you busy. It used to be, now we're going to date myself, but it used to be before cell phones and before people could easily communicate with you that you could get away. You could go to the beach, or you could be in the car. And people could try to call you, and they would either get nothing, they get a ringing tone, or they get an answering machine potentially, and you could say, "Well, I was driving, I was at the beach, I couldn't pick up." Now it doesn't matter. It could be 3:00 in the morning, you could be driving somewhere, you could be on the beach, and your endless busy box will bing or ding or do whatever it does, and remind you to be busy. And in essence, keep you barren. You're at the beach trying to clean out your soul. You're trying to put your feet into the water and let all the nonsense, the busyness of life drain out of you. And this thing goes ding, and you gotta, and you've got to be so more vigilant now. It's almost like people won't give you the excuse. They almost delight in sort of interrupting you. "Oh, I'm so sorry, but can you just da-da-da-da-da-da?" And if you're not 24/7, 365 connected, somehow you're not, being a company person or something. That busyness is squeezing the life out of people.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Because it keeps them in that doing mode.
Yeah.
You know, you've got this to do and this to do and this to do, and it's never soon enough. Or looking at it going, well, you should be prepping. If you care enough about our company or our family or whatever, you should be preparing for the next step that we're doing. So, and frankly, it's a thing that has been pressured for moms when there was more stay-at-home moms, and it was for people who are going to work, because whoever you're working for demands that, well, you're supposed to give me my time because I'm paying you for that. So it's interesting because you have to have very clear boundaries of where you're going to go and where you won't, which is another reason that you wind up making that list of things, that outline. It's, again, this is my boundary. This is what I got to work on. So you need to take a breath in that moment. And one thing I do envy about Eckhart Tolle is that, as he said, I can just stop thinking.
Yes.
It's
like
wonderful. I can just turn it off and be. And he just turns it off. It's like, no, it's like, that's so cool. You could just stop thinking. And you're out of your mind and on command.
But it's so important to unplug, at least. Eckhart, we could envy Eckhart because he has trained himself to that point where it doesn't matter what's going on around him. But most people are distracted. Even you said work, but really, I think it's even worse when you have all these, quote unquote pleasure things, like all this social media stuff, all the games, whatever. It's just constant bing, bing, bing. Oh, do this. Oh, play this. Oh, I got a new picture. Oh, this. It's not just the tyranny of a job, but it's this tyranny of this constant, look at me. Look what I'm doing. Pay attention to this game. Come over here. Do this. Look at this picture. All that is, again, the doing. And then you do it the other way, Mark, which is that you're posting. You're also busily telling people about all the busy things you're doing.
Yes, that's the what do they call that? It's like networking.
Well, yeah.
But if you think about it, this isn't really vital for your life. I mean, it is a connection. But the question always arises, how much value do you put on other people's opinions? Does it really matter that much? And that's really the question, because if it really does matter that much, that means you're a slave to other people's opinions. And you have to break that. That's a hold that's on you. Literally, you're almost looking at it going, well, does it matter? Does it really matter? And, the people that they call the influencers on the social media, their power is pretty much exactly that. They want people to care enough to hear what they have to say and respond to it.
There's a sort of a movement against it, if you will, this constant busyness, and you see it. It's reflected in people talk about, I'm going to take a forest bath. I'm going to unplug my phone. It's almost like a guilty pleasure. They're going to unplug their phone. Or you have these people like, I'll say,
That's fasting. They're fasting their phone.
Phone fasting, right? Or Marie Kondo says, if you pick something up and it doesn't give you joy, you get rid of it. But these are people, again, sort of trying through this symptomatic way to try and regain control over this tyranny of busyness. I don't think those things work either, because they themselves, these 7 steps to a less busy life, are just another 7 things you have to check off. The cure for this, the cure for the endless busyness and the barrenness, when people reach this point where they reach rock bottom, they say, my life is empty. I haven't done anything. This is the midlife crisis. But the cure for this is not other lists. It's really to do in some ways what Tolle says is stop, unplug, unthink, move it all away from yourself, including even the people telling you how to do it, how not to do it. Realize that there's a certain nurturing that you have to do for your own self. Sorry.
Yeah. You do not need to engage in the thought. And that is what people find very difficult, because they become habituated to thinking a certain way, to the point that if they don't think that way, they begin to crave it.
Yeah,
it's an addiction.
Well, Dr. Bump, remember he was saying these are all dopamine hits.
Right.
All these little dings and buzzes and bings and look at me, look at me, look at me's. The brain, the physical, becomes addicted to these little hits of dopamine, these little serotonin and dopamine, these pleasure chemicals that are in the brain. You get them like gambling addictions, drug addictions. They're all at this level of brain chemical triggering addictions, and the busyness, the checking off, the little jolt of pleasure you get from checking off a list, is a dopamine hit. The barrenness is that you get to the end of your physical time here, and you look at yourself, you have that life review, whether it's post-mortem or right before, and you just say, I haven't done anything. I haven't lived, right? That's the phrase. I haven't lived. And someone might say, who's in this same mode of busy, but you did all these things. You were this, you were this, you were this, you were this, but I haven't lived. I am empty. I'm barren. All that is dust. All that means nothing. The money, the success, the accomplishments, the fortune, nothing. I didn't get what I came here to do done. I'm bringing back up. I came like it's like the parable of the talents. I came with 1 talent, and I'm bringing it back just dustier and more, less used than it was when I brought it with me. You haven't grown.
Well, it's the phrase in English is, what a waste of life.
Yes. What a waste of life.
And you think of it in those terms. Is my life wasted because of this? Do I have something in my heart that I bring back? Something so precious that you want to share with all that is memory, a moment is so precious. And when you go home, you have this as a pearl to show and share with all others. Something so precious.
You have such beautiful analogies. The pearl comes from an irritant, but yet you coated it in the nacre of being, and you bring back this shining pearl from all the troubles in your life. Not from all the success. People go through life and they have millions, they have their celebrities and stars, and they always they say I'm empty. I have to go from thing to thing to thing because I have nothing. And yet this pearl, as you say, from the irritants in your life, from having having dealt with something real, and you bring it back, and Source just takes it back and says, "Oh, what a precious gift! A gift of a life lived." And here's my experience, and it doesn't take more than an instant, perhaps, or many instants, to have that pearl to bring back. And you know the precious pearls, because you know why you know them. You can't actually tell them to anybody without it has to be part of you. It has to be almost shining out of your being that this one has had an experience.
Right. That is an amazing thing to be able to do. And you can do it at any moment in your life.
Yeah.
Any moment in your life, this can be done. It's never too late. And our lives down here are so very short. What is it? We are but a vapor, St. Paul said. And to understand that any part of that short time span, you can form something so precious that it is beyond words. I have very few words to describe that moment in time where you are living so completely in the now that you see everything with the eyes of the heart, and you love regardless of what you see around you. It has nothing to do with the circumstances around you, but it has everything to do with the response to them. That's why the pearl is so evocative. As you said, there's something that gets inside that irritates, and it's the response of the mollusk that produces that beauty. That is who you are.
Well, and the if you want to know, and it's different for everybody, so it's not some sort of formulaic thing. But if you want to know why it's any moment of your life, because your heart knows when it's a moment, and you have to choose. You have to say, yes, I accept this. I'm going to take it in. I'm going to be here, wherever here is, for whatever time it takes. You don't put parameters on it. So I can give you 3 hours on Wednesday. No. You accept something in, and it may be 3 hours on Wednesday, or it may be the rest of your life, and you create from that a life experience and a pearl, in essence. Let's call it a pearl, but it is a life experience which is so precious, because it was not just the irritant. The irritant comes to millions. You're the one who created a pearl out of it, because you accepted it, and you lived with it and around it. And in your experience, that's what creates this pearl. The eyes of the heart know when you have one of these moments. Here comes something which you can pass by and go on to the next thing on your checklist, or you take it in.
Right.
You take in the seed of whatever it is, and it grows within you. You are no longer barren. You are pregnant with something.
Well, the seed is, especially for pearls, it could just be a grain of sand, which is the most common thing in this world.
Right.
To understand that the commonality of this world is the irritant.
Yeah. And the people in this world are a major irritant.
Well, they and to take that irritant and produce something amazing. But what I'd like to kind of bring forward is understanding that it's not the timeline, the artificial timeline that man produces that's important. It is the event that happens in your life that is important. Now, most people say, "Oh yeah, I've got that listed right here. This is my this is my wedding. This is the birth of my child. This is my job, a promotion, No. Event, meaning living so fully that everything in you agrees that this is a moment where we are completely alive. That's the event. and to understand that to walk in the realm of the divine, it is not man's timeline that matters, but it goes from one event to another. What is it? We learn, we walk, and we go from glory to glory. And glory to glory is you are in a moment, in an event, where each event is brought back to the eternity bank, almost like a string of pearls.
And to go and what you mentioned about the irritants, the acceptance of that, acceptance of the commonality, the common irritant, becomes that which is the seed of your glory.
Yes.
The important part about it is that the heart accepts what is, not what's happening next Wednesday or on your timeline. It comes into your life, and literally comes into your life unbidden. I mean, we had an experience with Christopher, but there's so many others. It's not the experience. It's not the irritant. The irritant is almost banal. It's, as you said, it's the response. The irritant comes in. You accept it. You live with it, and it's not. It is of your choosing, but it's not of your choosing. The only choice you have is to accept it, and then live with it. And sometimes it can bring you great joy. Sometimes it can bring you great sorrow. Sometimes it can just be something which is over before you even knew it. Sometimes it's something which, again, you can live with for the rest of your experience, your time here. That doesn't matter either. The time doesn't matter, as you said. The key is that you live with it because this is where you are now. You have opened yourself to this irritant, to this thing. It could bring you great joy. An irritant can be having to put so much of your life into learning to do something that brings you great joy. You become a concert pianist. It takes forever. And yet the joy that you bring may touch millions of lives.
Right.
The pearl that you create from that is the way you lived that life. It isn't that you won't have things to do. In fact, you may have more things to do than you could have possibly ever imagined because you accepted in the irritant. But they're no longer just lists. They're part of the acceptance. They're the next layer of nacre. And you don't know, the commitment you make is that I'll do whatever it takes to do this. And you don't know what the doing is going to be. You don't know what the next step is going to be. You step into faith, or you step into experience without saying, that looks shaky. I shouldn't go there. No, this is the next step. This is the next step. This is the next thing. Because the irritant and the pearl now guide your steps. You're, as I said, you're pregnant with this in the sense that you are producing something. You may not even know when it's quote unquote done. It'll tell you when it's done. Like a child, it'll say, "I'm done. I'm coming out now." And then you go, "Wow, this is what I was working on." But the point is that you don't know when it will be done, and you don't care in the sense of you do, but you don't sit there and go, "Is it done today?" No, you just say, "I know it's not today, because I know it's not now. It's not done yet. I'll know when it's done. It'll let me know when it's done." The pearl will say, "I'm complete. Now put that in your experience bank."
Right. There is an ending, just as there was a beginning.
There you go.
So you know that this cycle will complete itself. That's something that you can always count on.
Right. You can. That's very profound, and maybe bears repeating. There's a beginning.
Right. There is a beginning, and there is an end.
But you don't need to know when it is.
Right. And what you do in the middle is where your purvey happens to be. What are you producing at that point?
That bears repeating too. The beginning and the end are not under your control. Get used to it.
True.
Neither was the beginning of your life nor the end of your life. Not under your control. Your whole life can be the pearl. Your beginning, you had no say in it. Your end, you will have no say in it. Live the life in the middle, which is the pearl.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's very, it's unnerving for most people.
Scary.
Mm-hmm.
Life is a scary thing.
Yeah, it's unnerving to think that, well, okay, I didn't make my beginning and I can't really control my end. So what can I control? Instead of focusing on the things you can't control. And that has to do with how you respond to your irritant.
Well, this tiny irritant is that the show has come to a blessedly pearl-like end. So, I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret. And thank you for listening.